National Bourbon Day to everybody. Of course, here in Kentucky, every day is Bourbon Day, right? Well, my name is Eric Gregory, and I've got the greatest job in the world. As president of the Kentucky Distillers Association, it's my honor to welcome everyone today as we celebrate the opening of this landmark on Louisville's historic Whiskey Row and the latest addition to our iconic Kentucky Bourbon Trail Tour. It's also exciting to be here in Louisville, where so much is happening with our homegrown industry, thanks to the leadership of Mayor Greg Fisher and our friends at the Louisville Convention and Visitors Bureau, who you'll hear from in just a few minutes. A brief bit of history. As many of you know, the KDA's roots run deep here in Louisville. Our nonprofit group was founded in 1880 when 32 distillers met at the Galt House down the street and decided that they could accomplish more by working together than standing apart. I'm honored to say that our industry's friendship and camaraderie holds true today. It's that unique teamwork, unlike any other industry in the Commonwealth, that has propelled Kentucky bourbon into a renaissance not seen in generations. And we couldn't have accomplished this level of success without the leadership and vision of our friends at Brown-Forman, who have supported the KDA and steered the future of our signature spirit for generations. So please, let's give a hand to all the people at Brown-Forman. Our distilling family now has 39 members, the most since the glorious repeal of Prohibition, all working in unison to promote, protect, and elevate our industry and strengthen Kentucky's rightful title as the one true and authentic home for bourbon. Thanks to their hard work, Kentucky bourbon is more than just a drink. It's a thriving $8.5 billion economic engine that benefits all Kentuckians in every corner of the state. 17,500 good-paying jobs and growing. $800 million in payroll and growing. $825 million in tax revenue, unfortunately, and growing. $1.2 billion in capital investment, and yes, and growing with today's announcement. One thing that unites us all is the world-famous Kentucky Bourbon Trail, which the KDA and its members created 19 years ago to showcase our rich tradition, Southern hospitality, and timeless spirit. Last year, for the second year in a row, visitors made more than 1 million stops at the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Craft Tour distilleries as our thriving tourism attraction continues its record growth. Attendance has skyrocketed more than 314% in the last 10 years alone, pouring millions of much-needed revenue into the Commonwealth and local communities, while single-handedly and almost overnight elevating the demographic of the tourism industry in Kentucky. With today's announcement, we are now at a record 12 Kentucky Bourbon Trail distilleries, along with 14 members of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Craft Tour. It is clear that the Kentucky Bourbon Trail program has succeeded far beyond our wildest dreams, and nowhere is that more apparent than Louisville, one of the biggest winners of the bourbon boom. Louisville now has 6 stops on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail and KBT Craft Tour, the most of any community in the Commonwealth, with more to come. And later this summer, we'll be back at the other end of Main Street to celebrate the opening of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail Welcome Center at the Fraser History Museum, which will become the official starting point of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail for hundreds of thousands of visitors from all over the world. Yes, that's worth clapping about. In just a few minutes, you're going to personally see why Old Forester is quickly going to become the most popular of Kentucky Bourbon Trail stops and an amber anchor of the new Bourbon District and Whiskey Row. So to the entire Brown-Forman team, let me be the first today to say congratulations and thank you for your passion, your investment, and your leadership. And now, since I'm the only thing standing between you and air conditioning, and probably a good bourbon toast, please forgive me if I keep our introductions brief so we can keep things rolling. It is now my privilege to introduce Paul Varga, Brown-Forman CEO, who helped Brown-Forman build its premium spirits portfolio, expand its global presence, and expertly deploy capital projects like the Old Forester Distillery during his distinguished 31-year tenure at Brown-Forman. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Paul Varga.
Well, good day, everybody. This is a wonderful day for Brown-Forman and the city of Louisville. Just 3 summers ago, right across the street at our groundbreaking, we shared the following toast to mark the occasion. Old Forester and Whiskey Row, this day they both deserved, their place in the home of bourbon, now joyously preserved. The Brown family and Brown-Forman, again taking the longer view, cherishing something old, by creating something new. And so today, we are thrilled that what we foresaw a few years ago has today become a reality, with the most exciting part being that we can now share it with the city of Louisville, the large number of visitors and guests who come to our hometown, and the growing number of Old Forester and bourbon fanatics all over the world. You know, I'm regularly asked what's behind the resurgence of bourbon, and I often cite several factors, one being strong investments such as this, exceptional taste and quality of the products themselves, the authenticity of the brands, often grounded in very colorful histories, and very important, the very natural and genuine hospitality that bourbon producers show by opening their doors and their homes and sharing the stories of their brands. This combination of factors does not happen as often or as naturally in other consumer products categories to our knowledge. And today, the Old Forester Distillery glistens as a stellar example of this quality, authenticity, and hospitality. As recently as yesterday, in this building, I was asked by a reporter, is bourbon a fad or is it here to stay? Not surprisingly, I said it's here to stay. First, the category's volume today in the United States is only 60% of its former high point back in 1970. Only 60% of its former high point. And the category remains in its very earliest stages still in international markets where 96% of the world's population resides. And very importantly, companies like Brown-Forman and brands like Old Forester are making investments like the ones we are opening today, which lay the foundation for very long-running success that we intend to measure in decades, not weeks or months. In my personal view, our new Old Forester distillery and home place has a much better chance of creating an icon than fueling a fad. I was asked briefly today to describe to you the experience of the Old Forester distillery, and I concluded that the best way to do that is simply to say, you will have to see it to believe it. Now it's my pleasure to introduce one of bourbon's foremost spokespeople, my friend and our mayor, Greg Fisher.
Paul Varga. Paul Varga, think about what he's done over 3 decades to guide this company to where we're at right now. So you're in an elite list of just unbelievable CEOs that have led this company. And I just want to say thank you as you're transitioning, not soon, but they're treating you like a lame duck already. But this is one of the country's best CEOs right here. Let's hear it for Paul Varga. Great job. Several years ago, I called Paul and said, can we meet? I'm very concerned. So he said, yes, come on over. So I came over there. I said, Paul, don't you see what's happening with all the bourbon industry? All of your competitor brands are putting these experiences all over the city, and I'm very concerned about Brown-Forman. You guys are not doing anything. He looked at me and he just said, just hold on a little bit. We're going to do something very, very special here. And boy, have you guys delivered in such a big way here. If you haven't been inside, when you go through this experience, you'll see, like our other 5-star experiences here, just an incredible contribution to our city, to our state, to the industry that is helping us in so many ways. So, Paul, you delivered in a lot more on what you told me 3 years ago. So, again, thank you for that. Campbell Brown. Man, you got a good job. You got a great job. Imagine that. You get to take over one of the greatest brands in the history of spirits that really had not been invested in the way it could have been, and you are taking on this thing like a rocket ship. And you do it with such authenticity and class and style and fun that I can't wait to see what your future holds for you. So, Campbell, thank you so much. Brown-Forman is such a great family company, amongst other things. You got Campbell Brown, you got our chairman here, Garvin Brown. Most importantly, we have their mom here, Susan Brown, right over here. So, Susan, I want to say welcome back to Louisville. You've done a nice job with your boys here. So here we are today. just about 3 years after a terrible fire that hit us on Whiskey Row. And I want to say one day I do want to recognize after the terrible fire down Main Street at the Kentucky Center for the Arts. I want to thank the firefighters that helped us here today, the first responders that helped us 3 years ago, and the great job that they did for our city yesterday as well. You never know what life's going to throw at you, but boy, our guys really responded. And as I said 3 years ago when I was down here cheering the owners on, I said, this is going to be so great. As they looked at this building burning and they looked at me like I was crazy, I said, this is going to be part of the legacy of Whiskey Row. The history that's taken place in this building and its position in our city's history is one and the same. So when we have tragedy, when we have difficulty, our city comes back. And boy, have we come back strong here on Whiskey Row, and we'll do it at the Kentucky Center as well. In Louisville, bourbon is just more than our signature drink. It's a critical part of our history and our culture. And boy, our economy is on fire, and it's growing with bourbon as well. As all the stats told you, bourbon is super critical to our city. Right now, we have 9 bourbon experiences open or under construction, representing more than $150 million investments, 300 direct jobs here, not to mention the tourism impact of it. Everything was going on really well in the bourbon industry for a couple years until about 2 weeks ago. That's when the city of Bardstown broke the peace treaty that they had with the city of Louisville. There was some confusion on where the bourbon capital of the world was, and we decided to put it to the side and just grow the business. But they came to the Fraser with some serious smack talk 2 weeks ago and declared that they were the bourbon capital of the world. I let it go. I said, well, give it a slide. But today I understand that they received a proclamation from the governor officially proclaiming them as the bourbon capital of the world. So I'm here today to proclaim Louisville as the bourbon epicenter of the world. No, bourbon's happening all over the place, and I think it's wonderful. What's good for Bardstown and Frankfurt and Louisville is great for everybody. So we need a little good old-fashioned BS going back and forth here in this industry. When I talk to the master distillers, and I say, you guys are so full of BS. And they look at me and they say, Mayor, in the bourbon business, we call that folklore. All right. So the world is noticing. Boy, they're coming to our city like never before. 16 million tourist visits to our city last year, and it's growing. And of course, the Bourbon Trail is going. These accolades would not have been possible without the innovative thinking of George Garvin Brown. And think about his innovation. In 1870, he said, we can get that bourbon out of these barrels and put it into bottles and seal those bottles and be able to sell it all over the country. And here we are today. We're an amazing act of simple innovation, but has profoundly affected our city here 150 years later at the old Forester Distillery and Experience. So it turns out that innovation is pretty neat. And Campbell, that's just how I like my old Forester. All right. Thanks, everybody, for coming out here today.
I think that's the first time I've never heard Greg Fisher say the word bourbonism. What is it? Bourbonism. All right. It's now my honor to introduce Terry Gill, Secretary of the Kentucky Economic Development Cabinet, one of our greatest champions who is helping us build and expand our signature industry. Ladies and gentlemen, Secretary Terry Gill.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, on this beautiful, sunny, hot day. On behalf of Governor Bevin and Vivek Serene, we're grateful for your attendance today and just thrilled to be part of the celebration. And really a special thank you to Paul and to Campbell for lots of reasons, for their patience and tenacity, for their vision, for their enthusiasm for this community, and for their faith, quite honestly, in not only this community, but the state and the Commonwealth. And I can tell you, Paul's leadership over the years has become one of the things we point to when we talk about what makes this state special. We talk about our relationship with Brown-Forman, in particular, how dominant this company has become in our community, and really we're just so thrilled with our association. since 2012, there's been almost $2 billion worth of investment in this category. And 1,500 jobs have been created. And just last year, almost $700 million in investment in distilled spirits. So it becomes a business. And it isn't a cottage industry. It's leading the world. And to some degree, I think Louisvillians have a special place in our heart for Old Forester. The analogy I like to use is, do you remember when the Friday before Derby was sacred for Louisvillians, right? I mean, that was sort of our Derby. And I think Old Forester is that same sort of, we have that sort of connection to the brand. It is special to us, and we know it's an incredible leader in its category. The bourbon industry has become a global leader, and a perfect example of that is Vivek, the governor, and I were in Tokyo just last month with Ambassador Haggerty, who is the U.S. ambassador to Japan, and he hosted a bourbon tasting in his residence for 200 Japanese CEOs, really to celebrate the relationship that Kentucky, bourbon, and Japan have together. Now, they also included Tennessee. There's a small brand down there associated with Brown-Forman, but Governor Haslam didn't show up, so it was really all about bourbon. The reality is that from our perspective, bourbon becomes a door opener for the business we're in, which is developing the economy of the state. Everywhere we go, literally across the world, the first thing we generally talk about is bourbon. And it becomes a conversation about bourbon and aerospace, bourbon and our automotive industry, bourbon and aging care and logistics and distribution. So it helps us to open up the doors in a category that's absolutely widely loved. And that love affair that the world has with bourbon and with Brown-Forman, in some degree, is a love affair the world is beginning to have with our state. And if you look at the almost $15 billion of investment that we've been able to attract since Governor Bevin took office, that's a great indication of the love affair that the world has with this state. So we're thrilled to be here. We're thrilled to be a long-term partner for Brown-Forman, thrilled to be associated with this brand, and look forward to many years to come. Thank you all very much. One quick thing. The governor couldn't be here, but we have a gift for Paul and for Campbell. You've probably never seen these before. They're julep cups. But the governor has these created to sort of celebrate moments like this. So on behalf of the governor, congratulations.
Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Barbara Mangel had a song about being country when country wasn't cool. Well, our next speaker was bourbon country when bourbon country wasn't cool. I'm proud to introduce our friend Stacey Yates, Vice President Marketing Communications for the Louisville Convention and Visitors Bureau, one of the KDA's and our industry's key tourism partners. Thank you, Stacey.
Thank you, Eric. I can't imagine a better person to be compared to than Barbara Mandrell, one of my heroes. I am simply delighted to be a part of this celebration on behalf of Louisville's tourism industry. And speaking of celebrations, we have a lot to celebrate in tourism development right now. In fact, Louisville has never had this much simultaneous growth in tourism infrastructure, period. This makes us very unique, but you may not realize why. You may realize that we have a downtown convention center under construction and hopefully opening on August 6th. You may know that we have hotel rooms coming online right here beside us, 3,000 from 18 months past and 18 months into the future, a great pipeline. But a lot of other cities are doing this. In fact, we kind of pale in comparison to some of our competitive set in that regard. So where do we stand out? Bourbon. Not as a product. We know we've had that for 200 years. We drink it, we enjoy it, but as a cultural tourism experience. For those of you who aren't from Louisville or weren't here a decade ago, you may not remember when bourbon wasn't quite a thing. Well, I can remember the first ad we ran in 2007 in the Chicago market, simply touting Louisville as a destination to come through as a gateway to a bourbon experience, sending them out to those wonderful stops on the Kentucky Bourbon Trail. Well, now, with the investment in facilities like this, we're not a pass-through anymore. As the mayor said, we're not just an epicenter, we're the bourbon destination. There is no other city in America right now that is opening nearly a dozen spirits-related attractions, all around a central theme, and working together to build a brand identity around that. And because in the tourism office, we don't build bricks and mortar, we need partners like Brown-Forman. Their roots in our city helped write Louisville's bourbon history and is now shaping its future. With the opening of this venue, Brown-Forman will now help drive 2 economies in Louisville. With all of their brands, I'm sure they will continue to be a manufacturing powerhouse. And now, with Old Forester, they will be a vital driver in Louisville's tourism economy as well. You heard from the mayor that we have over 16 million visitors visiting the city annually, and I'm certain with a world-class attraction like this, we will grow that number. I know we have toasts in order. I know that's why I'm here. I don't know about you. And toasts include congratulations. But before we get to that, I simply want to Paul and Campbell, Lawson, Garvin, the entire Brown-Forman team, of which we've talked about this for years. You know who you are, right? And the Brown-Forman family, I simply want to say thank you. Thank you for this incredible investment and wonderful gift to our city.
Thank you, Stacy. Finally, it's my honor to introduce Campbell Brown, President and Managing Director of Old Forester, member of the KDA Board of Directors, and great-grandson of George Garvin Brown, who founded the company with his signature brand in 1870. Campbell, coming up, but real quick, I wouldn't be a good guest if I didn't bring you a housewarming present. So here we have a beautiful plaque to commemorate the fact that you are our newest member of the Kentucky Bourbon Trail here in 2018. So, congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, Eric. All right, I truly am the last person between you and air conditioning, so I hope to be efficient in my remarks. Thanks, Eric. Terry, thank you. Paul, Mayor Fisher, and Stacy. Obviously, we don't get here without your support and endorsements along the way. In addition, I want to thank Barbara Sexton-Smith and all of the work she's done to get us here. Our friends at the Louisville Downtown Partnership, Joe Mudd and the Messer construction team that built this wonderful facility. Thank you all. Shelley Malicki and the wonderful folks at Bravara, our architectural firm that once you get inside, you will see what they've been able to accomplish. And Gabby Chamberlain and Oliver Cobb. These are partners from New York that run Imagination. These are the folks that actually sat down with our family, our employees at Brown-Forman, and began to listen to our stories and how we told our stories. And they were the ones that helped us bring this to life, to bring the storytelling to life in a truly imaginative way. And they've done a really wonderful job, as you'll see. In addition, projects like this, there's a lot of internal partners that have helped us. I want to just call out a few. Our human resources team over the last year has helped us identify, recruit, and hire some of the most wonderful storytelling young men and women that you can find in this city. They're all here behind me. They love this brand like they've been here 150 years. Very proud of them. Mary Barazzato and our legal team for just keeping us on the straight and narrow and down the right path and getting us to the doorstep. Obviously, our design team at Brown-Forman, they've really done a great job. I love my office. My friends in production that have they've made it safe. It's an engineering feat. Basically, as you all know, it takes a village. But every village, there's that one individual that makes sure your house is safe, you're fed, you know where you need to be the next day. And we have a person like that that's been a part of this project for 3 years, and his name's Mike Beach, and he's sitting right there. Everybody should have a Mike Beach, but I'm glad not everybody does have a Mike Beach. I also want to just take a second to thank my cousins that are here, my brother, the family. This is kind of a spotlight on a bunch of stuff we don't often put a spotlight on, and just the support and the openness and the interest, and really helping us discover some stories we didn't know we could tell. You'll see a lot of that in here, and I just want to acknowledge them and thank you all so much. I hope you really enjoy it. All right, so for me, this is kind of interesting. The construction phase of the last 3 years are bookmarked by the third grade and economics. And when we started this project 3 years ago, my eldest daughter was just completing the third grade and economics. And as we were preparing for today, my youngest child was also completing the 3rd grade and economics. And just stick with me because as we've learned over the last couple months, economics can be hard. But the buzzwords floating around our house were capital resources, natural resources, and human resources. You know, the capital resources we're standing outside in front of, this is a great example when capital hits imagination and ambition and desire, and you get something wonderful like this. Natural resources end up what we get to consume when we get to open that delicious bottle of Old Forester, when we get home after work or before you go out. But really, what we hope you discover when you visit and spend some time at the Old Forester Distillery is that the thing that stands out so splendidly are the human resources, the people, the stories, and the families that have directly and indirectly influenced the Old Forester brand for almost 150 years. Ultimately, the product, Old Forester Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey, it speaks for itself, especially in these parts. It's on our back bars. We recognize its shape. We drink its delicious, balanced flavor. And it's often what we first share when we welcome guests to our city and into our homes. But today we get to share something else. We get to salute something more. We hope you'll find that when you take our tour, you'll leave with a greater appreciation for the city and Commonwealth that so proudly calls bourbon its native spirit. A fondness for the amazing people that have supported and led this brand through the high times and low times and all those moments in between, and a deeper understanding of our process, our commitment to quality, and our commitment to this industry, and a commitment to our home that we call Louisville. So I do hope that you accept our invitation into our home to join our family, our Old Forester family, and spend a moment walking through our whiskey making process while learning a little bit more about many of the interesting people that crossed our path over the last 15 decades or so. Today, it's an Old Forester kind of day. Thank you. So we're not, funny enough, we're not going to do a bourbon toast at 2:30 in this heat, but we'll have plenty inside. We're not going to cut a ribbon. When we were going through some of the historical process here, we've discovered that when George Garvin Brown was officing out of this building at the turn of the century, he had a different vernacular for his salespeople. He called them whiskey drummers. And so today, I'm going to ask the folks that are behind me to come up, and we're going to celebrate and recognize a new generation, and we're going to, as in the immortal words of T-Rex, bang a drum. And roll out our first barrels to put on this truck and start the process and open the doors for everyone to see what we've got inside. So again, thank you for being here. We're going to bang a drum.